Hey, welcome to College of Circles. This is Jeff, and today I'll be finishing my review of Pathfinder's Fists of the Ruby Phoenix with the box sets Danger Island Denizens and Tournament of Trials. I'll also be giving my overall thoughts on the Fists of the Ruby Phoenix line. Now, I base my reviews as part of playing Dungeons and Dragons. So I'm looking at how often a figure will be used in my games and how cool they are in that game. I score figures on a 10-point scale with 0 to 2 points in each of 5 categories. I look at the detail in the sculpt, the detail in the paint, how well the pose of the figure helps tell its story, how much versatility the figure offers me as a game master and player, and lastly, how much does the figure inspire my own creativity. Most figures will get a 1 in each category, with exceptional traits getting a 2, and figures that miss the mark in a category getting a 0. Now, I play D&D, so even though I use a lot of Pathfinder and Critical Role figures, my reviews are based on how I would use them for Dungeons & Dragons. These are my opinions based on my game table. Of course, yours may differ. I don't really consider the lore of a creature in the review, and I assume that what the players see in a figure is what the characters see in a game. Flavor is free, but my reviews would be less than helpful if I talked about using a T-Rex as a summoned brown bear. If you like this type of review, please subscribe to the channel, like this video, and don't be afraid to share it. With that out of the way, here are the figures. We start with the box set Danger Island Denizens. This set consists of 6 figures and was originally listed at $49.99. So the first figure we have here is the Blue Viper Lighthouse form. Now, this is a small figure and looks like it could be a were-rat. This also looks like a throwback to WizKids figures circa 2017, 2018, and I don't mean that as a compliment. The sculpt does have some decent details in it in the clothing, but this is one of the figures that was almost completely horizontal at its ankle. The paint job, again, there's some nice details in the clothing, but the face and the eyes are all over the place. So yeah, this is just a really sloppy figure. All in all, one that will probably never make it to my game table. Now, WizKids has really come a long way with these miniatures since 2020. So to see something like this, especially in a premium box set, is pretty disappointing. This is one of the worst painted figures I've seen in the last couple years. Now, we go from one of the worst figures I've seen in the last few years to one of my favorites, at least in this lineup. This is Brartork, Galarian's finest. Right off, what I really like about this figure is the fact that it's just a real classic barbarian. We don't get a lot of just pure barbarian figures like Conan figures in the Icons of the Realms. But this guy looks like he's straight out of one of the early He-Man comics, the little miniatures that came with the first wave of figures. Do like the sculpt, and the paint job on this is pretty good. But what's really cool about this is just the versatility and just the inspiration. This is, like I said, this is a pure barbarian, and one I'm looking forward to actually using in a game. Probably I would use it as an NPC to kind of represent somebody in the wild. The fire on it also looks really cool. You could use this as a wild magic barbarian. There's a couple of wonky things on this figure, particularly in the expression, and the sculpt around the waistline is just a little bit wonky, and the body doesn't quite line up with the hip. But that's a kind of a minor quibble. I really do appreciate this figure, and it's definitely going to end up at my game table. The third figure in this lineup is the Enforcer Warrior. And this figure is about as generic as its name. So there's not really a whole lot that stands out about this figure. But the one thing I like about her is the versatility. She could be an NPC. She could fill in as a sorcerer, a wizard, a druid. She has a lot of potential uses. So she probably will get used often at my table. But there's nothing particularly inspiring about her. Sometimes we just need figures that can fill multiple roles, and she definitely does that. But this isn't the kind of figure that I would build a character around or ever write a backstory for. The next figure we have here is the Manananagal. It's hard to say. So this figure was another one that I had to fix right away because its wings were kind of collapsed around itself. But once I open it up, there's a really big detail in this figure that I love, and that's and why it's getting the higher above average rating. So the lower torso of this figure is completely ripped off, and that spine is exposed. That is such a gruesome and cool little detail that it makes me immediately want to use it at the table. These are the kinds of details that players notice and helps kind of inspire their reaction and their character's reaction. So this is the kind of player, this is the kind of figure that you can use as a devil, a fiend, and, any one of the 9 layers of hell, anywhere in Avernus. It could be used in a demi-plane or like in a Strahd campaign as a victim of a vampire or a kind of vampire. Just a lot of really cool uses for this figure, and and then you got this long tongue that comes out of it. Yeah, just a lot of good details in this figure that makes me look forward to using it in a game. All right, here at number 5, we have the Mud Wretch. This is another figure that had to be repaired with boiling water, and while repairing it, I actually damaged and warped the base. So this kind of highlights the importance of these figures being packaged correctly. Yeah, we can go back and fix them, but every time you go to fix one of these figures, either gluing it on or boiling it, you have the potential of damaging it further. So it's just important to get these figures packaged right. We're paying for it. It should come out of the box as it was intended. So other than that, this is a perfectly serviceable figure. It could be used again as a demon or a devil. It could be an elemental. It's kind of big to be a Mephite, but you could use it in that way. Or some kind of, I could see using this in the elemental plane of fire, or in Avernus or in Hell. So really simple figure, but one that has quite a bit of versatility. And again, another figure, not one it would never be a central figure, but it would get used a lot in the games I play. All right, our final figure for the Danger Island Denizens is the Ranto Goblin Wrestler. Now, this cute little figure his pose definitely helps enrich his personality. The only issue I have with this figure is kind of like the Mud Wretch. I don't know if this one belongs in a premium box set. This box set was $50 for 6 figures, and I don't know if this particular figure justifies that price, and the other figures don't compensate for these more common oriented figures. If this was a figure in a 47 figure, typical 47 figure lineup, I would probably have a better opinion of it. But as part of a box set, I just don't think there's enough value there. I do think his weapon is pretty cool. It's bigger than he is, and that kind of helps boost the personality of this figure. And the expression on his face is also, there's just a lot of expressiveness in this figure. So anytime I'm running goblins, I'm probably going to include him in it. I just don't know if it belonged in this sort of a box set. We move on to the Tournament of Trials box set. This set consists of 7 figures and originally sold for $79.99, almost $11.50 per figure. The first figure in the set is the Golden League Shun. Shun is a humanoid fox. While there is no such race in D&D, we do have the Ardlang from the Unearthed Arcana. Ardlings are a celestial beast race that can come in any kind of beast form. It's sometimes referred to as the D&D furry. So Shun here can step right into that role. The sculpt has some really nice details. Shun has some really nice details on the sculpt, and there's some really nice highlights in the paint and the tail, and in the face. There's some just nice highlights there. The only thing that's really missing is some of the details in the clothing aren't painted, and I really think they should have been. Like his little, looks like maybe a bolero. His pose is pretty cool. Like I could see using this as a ranger or a rogue. The versatility is kind of rough because it's such a specific animal that's not usually found in D&D, or such a specific humanoid not found in D&D. But the fact that we now have the Ardling means you could definitely plop him in. And it is, and besides the versatility, it is a pretty cool looking figure. Our second figure here is the Provincial Zhongxi Vampire. Now, this is a really interesting looking figure. The sculpt is probably the highlight. It has these robes that are flowing out as he's flying. He's holding a broom. So I'm digging the pose. I'm really digging the sculpt. The paint is a little bit sloppy. It's just kind of, the paint is a little generic in the face, but in the clothing, it looks pretty good. The pose on this figure really helps kind of tell its story. And I could see using this figure in so many different ways. He could be, he's ready made to be a Shatterkai, sorcerer, or wizard. He could be a vampire. So really a lot of ways to use this figure as an NPC or a PC. And it's one of the best figures in this Ruby Phoenix set. All right, up next we have Razu, the Tengu Master Bard. So this is a pretty cool figure. He's got his instruments and his robes, and he just has a very regal statue about him. The only real issue I have with this figure is the complete lack of paint in the face. Even if you're gonna grant that the eyes would be black, there should be something separating the eyes, maybe a white highlight or something separating the eyes from the beak and the rest of the head. You have all this really nice detail in the clothes and the instruments, and then the head just looks like it was released unfinished. The way this figure stands really kind of helps establish his personality and his story. I personally would most likely use it as an NPC, perhaps a hermit or somebody that the players would have to go visit to get some information. But that's what I really like about these figures, is when they kind of help tell me a story, because then I in turn want to tell that story to my players. So it's a simple figure, but it's really cool and has quite a little bit of personality in it for such a simple figure. And then we get this nonsense, the Rivka. I can't stress enough, this is a premium box set. It's the only set that Pathfinder released in 2023. For an entire year, this was it. This is a box set that costs $80 or $11.50 per figure. And in that box set, we get this stupid little beetle. Now, this would be fine as a common figure in a booster brick, and there's nothing particularly wrong about it. But again, $11.50 per figure, and we get this little beetle. The paint is fine. The paint job in here is actually better than some of the other figures. The detail, the pose is fine. This would be a perfectly acceptable $3 or $4 figure, but it's just a dump figure in this lineup. All right, now we're back to a more deserving figure. So this is the Shadow Yai. This figure poses kind of a problem for D&D players, but it's a problem that I'm looking forward to tackling. There really is no analog for a large tiefling type character with 3 eyes in D&D, but because it's such a cool figure, I'm going to find a way to work it into a game. Also, this figure actually, because I underestimated some of the details on this figure, I actually ended up changing the way I make these videos. Originally, I would just look at the figure and base my review off of what I could see while holding it. But when I actually started looking at the video of this figure, I realized that I was missing a lot. So now looking at the video, you can start seeing all these awesome details in the sculpt. The instrument he's holding, the smoke that's coming out, it's not just smoke. There's actually skulls inside that smoke. The uniform has an exceptional paint job. Speaking of well-made figures, I initially overlooked, here we have the Taiga Yai. And again, so many cool details in the sculpt. You can see the quiver of arrows on his hip under his robe. And in that robe itself it's a fur coat. And you can see all the little details in the fur. His mouth almost looks like it's sewn shut, which again, makes me want to, okay, why is his mouse on show? Where's the story there? This is the biggest figure in this particular set, and he's really trying hard to justify $80 on this set. But as good as he is, I don't know that I don't think he actually does it. But between this guy and the shadowy eye, I would definitely come up with some sort of a D&D homebrew to work these guys in. Again, two really excellent figures. Just they may not make up for some of the other lackluster figures. And speaking of which, now that the compliments are out of the way, we're going on to my least favorite figure in this entire Ruby Phoenix lineup. On the video, he actually looks a little bit better than he did just looking at him. This is the Yabin the Just, and looking at the figure on the table, it looks terrible. You can't see any details, and it just looks like a figure of Mr. Hanky with a green mohawk. When you blow him up on the video, you can start seeing there's this really beautiful tattoo on his head. But other than that, there just isn't a whole lot of there's nothing going on. The pose is unspectacular. The sculpt is boring. Other than that tattoo, the paint is boring. So that detail is really cool. But you only see that detail when you blow it up 1,000%. This is one of the worst figures I've seen from WizKids in the last 3 years. All right, so now for my overall thoughts on Fists of the Ruby Phoenix. In this set, there were 5 figures I had to fix right away by reshaping them in boiling water. I think the packaging for this line caused that particular problem. Usually in a premium set, the figures are packaged in an individual plastic bubble, or they're packaged in a group within a plastic bubble. But for Fist of the Ruby Phoenix, they were packaged in individual brown envelopes, and then those envelopes were packed inside of a box that you couldn't really see into. Now, this did 2 things. One, it hid just how bad some of these figures were. If I had seen these figures in the store, 6 months ago, I don't think I ever would have bought this bundle set. The other thing I did was, by packaging them in those envelopes and placing in this box, it kind of crushed a couple of the figures, and I think it contributed to all the figures that were sagging at the ankles. Hopefully this is a one-time issue, and not a sign of things to come. Now, I've been a fan of Pathfinder miniatures in the past, so it's kind of shocking looking back and realizing they only released 1 set of figures in 2023, and this was all they could come up with. This is a min-maxed premium set. There are a few standouts like Haojin, Brartork, and the Jiangsu Vampire. But for every standout, there is a complete dump figure that does not belong here. Some of you may argue with me that this was not a premium set, and it was actually listed as a themed set under Pathfinder Battles. I keep referring to it as a premium set because it was priced that way. A booster pack typically costs $16 or about $4 per figure. Total cost of the Ruby Phoenix lineup of 27 figures would be over $300, or $270 if you don't include the Sindara Final Form figure. Now that's over $10 per figure. Previous Pathfinder releases, like the Advanced Iconic Heroes I'm showing here, only averaged $6.25 per figure, and the overall quality of those figures from way back in 2021 is way higher than this set. As a bundle for $150, I would say you're not getting ripped off with this set, but I would never recommend paying full price for these figures. Pathfinder is releasing the Army of the Dead series in 2024, and I'm really hoping that set is a return to the quality I expect from Pathfinder and WizKids. So, I just want to thank you guys for watching. Do you think I was too harsh? Which figures did you like the most? Leave a comment below. Once again, I'm Jeff, and I'll see you on the next College of Circles.